from Take a Ride.
At the Foro Italico, Gnocchi thanks all those who have helped the building of a new workhouse in Rome.
We want to create a center that includes the whole human person, from the physical to the spiritual. It should not, as unfortunately happens today, neglect scholastic and professional aspects, which should go hand in hand. A center to restore the human person to his full activity, a social center. With this work, we hope to give these children a spiritual as well as a human reality.
An impassioned modern entrepreneur of charity. This is the new way Don Carlo Gnocchi has been described. He was solemnly beatified on 25th October 2009 in Piazza Duomo, Milan, following a rigorous process that went on for over 22 years.
I have always sought Christ's traces on earth with eager and persistent hope, and I seem to have seen his gaze twinkling in the pure and smiling eyes of children. It has an opaque transparency, like through a veil of alabaster, in the pale, weary smile of the elderly. I have tried to grasp the sound of his voice in the sorrowful laments of the poor and the afflicted, and it has often seemed to me that his faint shadow has blossomed before me in the final twilight of the dying.
In 1956, all of Italy bade an emotional farewell to the frail priest, participating en masse at his funeral, celebrated by his friend Cardinal Archbishop Giovanni Battista Montini, later Pope Paul VI, and sealed by the moving and prophetic words of little Domenico.
First I said, "Ciao, Don Carlo." Today I say, "Ciao, San Carlo."
Audience granted to the Don Gnocchi Foundation, 30th November 2002.
Love was truly the secret of his entire life. In every sufferer, he saw Christ crucified. Even more so if they were fragile, small, defenseless.
A son of Lombardy. Carlo was born in San Colombano at Lambro, near Lodi, on 25th October 1902. His childhood was tinged with sorrow. The early death of his father Enrico, a marble cutter, followed by the deaths of his brothers Mario and Andrea, affected him deeply. He remained alone with his mother Clementina, his sole support and emotional refuge. At her knee, he learned the rudiments of Christian faith. Following her footsteps, he learned to walk in the ways of caring for the poor. He followed her example throughout his life. He wrote in a letter,
How I loved my mama, and how I love her even more now. I appreciate more each day the strength of her love, her silent dedication to duty, her Christian hope.
Carlo attended seminaries in Milan during the final years of Blessed Cardinal Andrea Ferrari's bishopric. He completed high school, demonstrating a lively intelligence. He was especially fond of literature, poetry, the history of art and music. He played the piano and composed some operettas and student hymns. Priest and educator. In 1925, Carlo Gnocchi was ordained to the priesthood and celebrated his first Mass in Montesiro in Brianza. His first post was as assistant to the oratory, first in Cernusco sul Naviglio and then in Milan, in the large parish of San Pietro in Sala, where he was appreciated for his energetic activity and his outstanding gifts as an educator. In 1936, Cardinal Shasta named him spiritual director of one of the most prestigious schools in Milan, the Gonzaga Institute, run by the Brothers of the Christian Schools. Don Carlo's educational work was carried out mainly through his devoted attention to the lives of children. Aware that in an increasingly complex society, it was necessary to train the conscience, encouraging the development of critical intelligence, and teaching young people to reason, to shun extremism, to make judgments free from passions, and to develop attitudes of charity, responsibility, and giving of oneself. chaplain of the Alpine troops. Italy entered the war in 1940, and many young students were called to the front. Hoping to be not only a teacher, but above all a witness to life, Don Gnocchi followed his young charges in the daunting trials of war. As a volunteer chaplain, he went calmly forth, joining the troops in Julia, in the muddy mountains of Albania and Greece, and then the frozen steppes of Russia, with the Tridentine Alpine legions. His wartime experiences and the drama of the Russian retreat, when he miraculously survived, brought him face to face with the mystery of evil, for which all easy explanations sounded empty and base. When a young Alpine soldier died in his arms, Don Gnocchi cried out,
"I have seen Christ."
This was the true conversion of Don Carlo, and was destined to change his life radically, and showed him with extreme clarity the direction his ministry should take. In a letter written at the time to his cousin Mario, he promised,
"After the war, I dream of dedicating myself to a work of charity, whatever it may be, or rather, whatever God shows me. I desire and pray to the Lord for one thing only, to serve the poor all my life. This is my career. Unfortunately, I do not know whether I am worthy of this great grace, because it is a privilege."
Father of crippled children. Back from the front, he immediately set out on a sorrowful pilgrimage among the Alpine valleys, in search of the families of the Alpine soldiers who had died in the white hell of Russia, and took part personally in the resistance. Arrested by the Nazi SS, he was put in prison. Providence showed him how to devote the rest of his life. He became director of the Greater Institute for the Disabled in Arosio, where he took in the first orphans of war.
President of the Pro Juventute Foundation from 1962 to 1992.
Carlo was unsure whether to work with orphans or to address other needs of children. Then one day a mother with a child came into his study. The previous month the child had been torn to pieces by a bomb and had lost an arm and a leg. This poor desperate mother propped him right up on the desk. Carlo told me that, seeing the child there on my desk, he could scarcely move unless someone picked him up. I felt illuminated. I was certain that I had to take care of these children.
Faced with the tragedy of innocent suffering, Don Carlo developed a personal, bold response, which became the emblem of that love which not only restores life, but gives it in abundance.
Whoever can restore health, integrity, and serenity to a child is no less a father than him who first gave life to that child.
He founded the Pro Infancia Mutilata Federation, which became the Pro Juventute Foundation in 1952. Within a few years, the work had expanded prodigiously, with colleges all over Italy. Don Carlo found himself having to feed hundreds of mouths, give maimed legs the strength to walk, teach mutilated hands to write and work, heal and redeem sufferings, and comfort wounded hearts. He conceived of his colleges in a new way, not merely as clinics, but as places to encourage emotional and intellectual maturity among the children, with medical and surgical care, schooling and professional training in a spirit of serenity, sometimes in a festive atmosphere.
We always waited for him when he came. Then he taught us many lovely things, to pray and to be good. I attended elementary school and the commercial school, and now I make pottery.
He looked at me deeply in the eyes and told me, "You will do it." These deep eyes that were inspecting you down to the bottom of your soul. So I thought that if he said it, I would be able to do it.
Don Carlo sought and received endorsement from the highest ecclesiastical and civilian institutions. He had memorable encounters with Pope Pius XII. In these now recovered unpublished amateur images thousands of mutilated children arrive in Rome from all over, with presidents of the Republic Einaudi and Gnocchi, and the highest officers of state, asking for help from the worlds of cinema and sport. He involved the press and public opinion with extraordinary news-making initiatives. A little single-engine plane, the Angel of Babies, flew from Milan to Buenos Aires, and a scouting expedition, piloted by the legendary Guzzini, crossed Europe and reached the North Cape to support Don Carlo's work. His last major undertaking, which would sum up his extraordinary rehabilitative efforts, was the establishment in Milan of a pilot center for victims of polio, the new plague to which he devoted himself, when the crippled children emergency had run its course.
We want to build a proper home for these children, a home designed for children who cannot take care of themselves, where everything, chairs, desks, beds, bathrooms, playing fields, floors, walls, and doors wide enough for wheelchairs, etc., is designed to work for a community of those who cannot walk by themselves, who are not self-sufficient. The centre will cost roughly £1 billion lira.
Forerunner of organ donation. 5 months after the first stone was laid at the centre, Don Carlo, afflicted with unrelenting illness and worn out from fatigue, died at the Columbus Clinic in Milan at age 53. It was February 28, 1956. But he wanted to put the final seal on a life given generously to the end, to give his eyes to 2 crippled children as a last gesture of love, a final admonition to a society that is too often slow and insensitive in meeting the needs of the most helpless. And thanks to Don Gnocchi, the Italian Parliament issued the first laws governing organ transplants, while on the moral side, Pope Pius XII immediately acknowledged the generous gesture, silencing all doubts and observations to the contrary. In 1986, 30 years after Don Carlo's death, the Archbishop of Milan, Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini, began the process of beatification. In 2002, in recognition of his heroic virtues, John Paul II proclaimed him venerable. Finally, in January of 2009, Benedict XVI credited Don Gnocchi's intercession with the miracle of an Alpine electrician from Bergamo, who miraculously survived a fatal electric shock. This was the final, much-awaited step, sanctioning Don Carlo's beatification. According to his wish expressed in his will, his remains, first interred in the chapel of the Santa Maria Nascente Center in Milan, are now housed in the nearby church dedicated to him, consecrated by Cardinal Dionigi Tettamansi 1 year after his beatification, and then elevated by Cardinal Angelo Scola to diocesan sanctuary. Attached to the shrine, a memorial museum was set up, where objects and cherished memories of Don Gnocchi are preserved. The Foundation's heritage.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, continuate.
Beloved brothers and sisters, continue to follow in the footsteps of this unforgettable master of life.
Servendo, infatti,
By serving the last and littlest in a disinterested way, one helps to build a more welcoming, united world.
più accogliente e solidale.
Faithful to Don Gnocchi's charisma and mandate, the foundation that bears his name continues his commitment of service to life, a challenge that continues in service to the less fortunate, disabled children and young people, persons of all ages with serious disabling illnesses, the elderly in need of assistance with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or other forms of senile dementia, terminal cancer patients, persons with severe brain lesions or in coma. Care and assistance activities are carried out in 28 centres, and some 30 outpatient clinics in 9 regions, with over 3,700 hospital beds and 10,000 patients cared for each day on average. Intense scientific research, technological innovation and training on the widest variety of levels. Many international solidarity projects have been undertaken in the world's poorest countries under the auspices of NGOs. With courage and faith, as Don Carlo seems to indicate on this recording.
But when I remember how, when I started, I said without thinking, with those 100 children, without knowing how much a pair of socks or a kilo of bread cost, but thanks to the Lord and those who helped me, the friends, the government, the authorities, I said we'd almost solved the problem of disabled children. I think we can make another act of faith.